In the opulent shadows of a sprawling mansion nestled in the heart of Mumbai's elite enclave, where marble floors gleamed like polished diamonds and crystal chandeliers whispered secrets of old money, lived a woman whose life had once been a tapestry of grace and authority. Mrs. Anjali Kapoor, a widow of refined elegance, had raised her only son Arjun with the unyielding poise of a queen. But now, at 65, she found herself reduced to a ghost in her own legacy, a silent servant in the home she had gifted to him upon his marriage. Little did her daughter-in-law know, the walls had eyes, and those eyes belonged to the very man she sought to impress. It all began innocently enough, or so it seemed. Arjun, a successful tech entrepreneur whose apps revolutionized the way India connected online, had married Priya 2 years prior in a lavish ceremony that made headlines in society pages. Priya was a vision of modern ambition, sharp-witted, impeccably dressed, and armed with an MBA from a top Ivy League school. She entered the Kapoor household like a whirlwind, redecorating rooms with minimalist flair and hosting soirees that buzzed with influencers and business tycoons. Anjali, ever the gracious matriarch, welcomed her with open arms, offering wisdom from her own days as a celebrated socialite. But beneath Priya's polished smile lurked a resentment that festered like a hidden wound. The first signs were subtle. "Maji," Priya would say with a saccharine tone, "why don't you help with the breakfast? The cook is off today, and you know how Arjun loves your special parathas." Anjali, eager to bond, complied, her arthritic hands kneading dough in the kitchen while Priya lounged by the pool, scrolling through her phone. Soon these requests became demands. "Maji, the laundry needs folding. Could you manage? I'm swamped with work calls." Anjali's days blurred into a routine of scrubbing, dusting, and serving, her once vibrant saris replaced by simple cotton ones stained with chores. Priya justified it with feigned concern. "It's good for your health, Maji. Keeps you active." But in private to her friends over video calls she'd laugh. "The old woman thinks she's still the lady of the house. I've got her right where she belongs, out of my way." Unbeknownst to Priya, Arjun had installed discreet security cameras throughout the home months earlier, after a minor burglary scare in the neighborhood. He monitored them sporadically from his office, more for peace of mind than suspicion. But one fateful afternoon, while stuck in a virtual meeting that dragged on interminably, he absent-mindedly pulled up the feed on his second screen. What he saw froze him in place. There was his mother on her knees in the living room, polishing the antique coffee table with a rag, her back bent in exhaustion. Priya stood over her, arms crossed, barking orders like a taskmaster. "Faster, Maji. The guests will be here in an hour and I won't have this place looking like a slum." Anjali murmured something apologetic, her voice trembling, but Priya cut her off. "Honestly, if it weren't for Arjun, I'd have sent you to some retirement home by now. You're more trouble than you're worth." Arjun's blood boiled as he watched his mother rise slowly, wiping sweat from her brow, only to be handed a mop and pointed toward the kitchen floor. He couldn't believe it. His wife, the woman he adored for her intelligence and drive, treating his mother like hired help? The betrayal cut deep, sharper than any business deal gone wrong. But Arjun was no impulsive fool. He was a strategist, a man who built empires from code and cunning. He decided to observe, to gather evidence, all while maintaining his usual affectionate demeanor at home. That evening, as they dined on the meal Anjali had prepared, Priya taking credit for the exquisite butter chicken, Arjun smiled warmly at both women, his mind racing with plans. Over the next weeks the pattern escalated. Priya, emboldened by what she perceived as Anjali's submission, assigned more demeaning tasks, ironing her designer blouses, cleaning the bathrooms, even fetching her morning coffee in bed while Arjun was supposedly away on business trips. But he wasn't always away. Sometimes he'd feign travel, checking into a nearby hotel to monitor the feeds in real time. One particularly humiliating incident involved Priya hosting a brunch for her social circle. She made Anjali serve the guests, introducing her not as family but as our devoted helper. The women tittered behind their hands, and Anjali's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she poured tea with shaking hands. Arjun's heart shattered anew each time, but he bided his time. He began documenting everything. Screenshots, timestamps, even audio clips where Priya's venomous words echoed clearly. Meanwhile, he subtly encouraged his mother, slipping her notes of love and promises of change when Priya wasn't looking. Hold on, Ma, one read. Justice is coming. The turning point arrived on a stormy monsoon evening, when the skies wept as if in sympathy for Anjali's plight. Priya, in a fit of frustration over a delayed package, hurled insults at Anjali in the foyer. You're useless. Can't you do anything right? Arjun must regret bringing you here. Anjali for the first time stood tall, her voice steady. I am his mother, Priya. This is my home too. Priya laughed cruelly. Your home? Please. You're nothing but a maid now. At that moment the front door swung open, rain lashing in with the wind. Arjun stepped inside, his face a mask of controlled fury, a tablet in hand displaying the live feed. Priya's eyes widened in horror as she realized the truth. He had seen it all. Arjun, darling, it's not what it looks like, she stammered, but he held up a hand, his voice like thunder. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like, he said, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her shrink back. He turned to his mother, pulling her into a gentle embrace. Ma, you won't have to endure this another day. As Priya protested, Arjun played back the recordings, each clip a nail in the coffin of their marriage. The guests from her circle whom she had invited over earlier were still lingering in the drawing room and overheard the confrontation, their whispers turning to gasps. But Arjun wasn't done. He had already consulted lawyers, frozen joint accounts, and prepared for the fallout. Priya, he said coldly, you've mistaken kindness for weakness. My mother built this family, you tried to tear it down. As the storm raged outside, the real tempest unfolded within those walls, with Anjali finally reclaiming her dignity and Priya facing the consequences of her hubris. Yet as the night deepened, Arjun uncovered something even more shocking in the footage. A secret alliance Priya had formed with one of his business rivals, whispers of sabotage that explained recent setbacks in his company. It seemed her cruelty was just the tip of a deeper betrayal, one that threatened not only his family but his empire. With determination stealing his resolve, Arjun vowed to expose it all, but first he needed to protect his mother and confront the web of deceit that had ensnared them. The next morning, as the sun pierced through the clouds, he began his counterstrike, calling in favors from old allies and setting a trap that would change everything. Arjun stood motionless for a heartbeat, rain dripping from his coat onto the marble floor that his mother had polished only hours earlier. The tablet in his hand felt heavier than any contract he'd ever signed. Priya's face had drained of color, her perfectly lined lips parted in a silent gasp as the audio from the latest clip continued to play on loop. Her own voice, sharp and unmistakable. If she dies tomorrow, at least the house will finally be quiet. Anjali pulled away from her son's embrace just enough to look up at him. Her eyes, usually soft with resignation, now held a quiet fire. Arjun Beta, you knew? Not everything, he admitted, voice low. But enough. Too much. He turned back to Priya, who had taken a step backward until her shoulders met the wall. You didn't just humiliate my mother. You recorded conversations in my study, conversations about the Singapore acquisition. I heard you on the phone last week feeding details to Vikram Sethi, my competitor, the man who undercut our bid by 3% the very next day. Priya's composure cracked. That's not, I was protecting our future. You're too trusting, Arjun. Too sentimental. Your mother's generation thinks loyalty is enough. Business doesn't work that way anymore. Loyalty. Arjun repeated the word as though tasting something bitter. You turned my home into a prison for the woman who gave me everything. You used her grief, her love for me to control her. And then you sold me out for, what? A bigger apartment in Bandra? A seat at Sethi's table? Priya's gaze darted toward the drawing room, where a handful of her brunch guests still lingered, frozen in awkward fascination. One woman, Ria, Priya's closest confidant, already had her phone out, recording discreetly. The scandal was spreading faster than monsoon floodwater. Anjali spoke then, her voice carrying the calm authority she had once wielded in drawing rooms across the city. Enough, Priya. You may leave my son's house tonight. But first you will apologize, not to me but to him. And to every person in this room who witnessed what you truly are. Priya laughed, a brittle, desperate sound. Apologize. To the man who let his mother scrub toilets while he played CEO? You enabled this, Arjun. You were never home. You let me run the household. Don't pretend you're the hero now. The words landed like a slap, but Arjun did not flinch. Instead he walked to the console table where the house landline sat, an old rotary model his father had loved, and dialed a number from memory. When the call connected he spoke clearly. Inspector Rao? Yes, it's Arjun Kapoor. I need to report corporate espionage and financial misconduct. I have recordings, bank transfer proofs and timestamps. The suspect is in my home right now. Yes, Priya Malhotra Kapoor. Priya lunged forward. You're bluffing. You wouldn't. But Arjun had already hung up. He looked at his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, with something close to pity. I gave you every chance to stop. Every single day I hoped the cameras were lying. But you doubled down. You chose this. Anjali placed a gentle hand on her son's arm. Let her go, Beta. Not tonight, not in anger. Let the law do what anger cannot. Priya's eyes filled with tears. Whether genuine or performative, no one could tell. You'll regret this. Both of you. I made you who you are today. Without me. Without you, Arjun interrupted softly, I would still have my mother. And that is worth more than any valuation sheet. He nodded toward the butler who had appeared silently at the edge of the foyer. Ramesh ji, please escort Mrs. Priya to the guest wing. She may pack one suitcase. The driver will take her to her parents' residence in Worli. Her things will be sent tomorrow. Priya stared at him, disbelief morphing into rage. You think this ends here? I have friends. I have proof of your own mistakes. Those late-night meetings with that junior analyst. Anjali stepped forward then, small but unyielding. Enough venom, Priya. You mistake silence for ignorance. I have watched you for 2 years. I know every lie you told, every call you made when you thought I was deaf in the kitchen. And I kept quiet, not because I was weak, but because I hoped you would grow into the woman my son believed you to be. For the first time Priya had no retort. She looked from mother to son, realizing the fortress she had tried to conquer had never truly fallen. She turned on her heel and stormed toward the staircase, heels clicking like gunfire on marble. As soon as she disappeared upstairs, Arjun exhaled, shoulders dropping for the first time in weeks. He pulled his mother close again. I'm so sorry, Ma. I should have seen it sooner. Anjali cupped his face. You saw it when it mattered. That is enough. They stood like that for a long minute, the storm outside softening to a steady drizzle. Then Anjali straightened. But this isn't over, is it? Arjun shook his head. No. Vikram Sethi has been circling for months. If Priya was feeding him information, there's likely more emails, documents, maybe even planted bugs in my office. I need to move fast before he uses whatever she gave him. He guided his mother to the sofa, the same one she had been forced to dust and fluff for Priya's guests only that morning. First thing tomorrow I'm calling the board. Full disclosure. We'll freeze the Singapore deal, audit every transaction from the last 18 months, and bring in external cybersecurity. But tonight, he looked around the vast echoing house. Tonight we start healing this home. Anjali smiled. A real smile, small and luminous. Then let me make us chai. The way your father liked it, strong with elaichi and a little extra ginger. Arjun laughed, the sound surprising even himself. Only if you sit while I make it. They moved to the kitchen together, a simple act that felt revolutionary. As the kettle hummed, Arjun's phone buzzed. Ramesh informing him that Priya had been escorted out and was now en route to Worli. Another message followed from his lawyer. Police were on standby. Formal complaint would be filed at first light. But as he poured the steaming chai, Arjun's mind was already racing ahead. He remembered a conversation he'd had with Vikram Sethi at last year's tech summit. Casual, almost friendly, yet edged with something predatory. Sethi had joked about old money crumbling under new pressure. Arjun had laughed it off then. Now the words echoed like prophecy. He set the cup in front of his mother. Ma, there's something I need to tell you. The company, we're not as secure as I thought. Sethi has inside information he could tank the next funding round. We might lose everything we built. Anjali sipped slowly, considering. Then we fight smarter. Not with anger, with clarity. You have something he doesn't. What's that? Roots, she said simply. People who remember who you were before the billions. Old employees, university friends, even the drivers and cooks who watched you grow up. They're loyal because they know your heart. He only has mercenaries. Arjun stared at her, struck by how clearly she saw what he had been too busy to notice. You're right. Of course I am, she said with a wry smile. I may have been scrubbing floors, but my eyes were open. They talked late into the night. Plans, contingencies, memories. Anjali recounted stories of Arjun's father negotiating with suppliers during lean years, how he won loyalty with respect instead of fear. Arjun listened, feeling pieces of himself slot back into place. By the time the clock struck 2, the storm had passed entirely. Moonlight silvered the garden beyond the French windows. Anjali rose, stiff but determined. I'm going to sleep in my old room tonight. The one with the rosewood bed your father carved. Arjun stood too. I'll walk you up. At the foot of the grand staircase she paused. One more thing, Beta. When this is over, when the dust settles, promise me you'll find someone who sees you, not your empire. Someone who would never ask your mother to bow. I promise, he said, throat tight. She touched his cheek once more, then climbed the stairs slowly, each step reclaiming territory long surrendered. Arjun remained below, staring after her until she disappeared around the landing. Then he returned to his study, opened his laptop and began drafting the email that would detonate the first controlled explosion of the counterstrike. A message to the board, CC'd to his most trusted executives, detailing the breach, attaching the first batch of damning recordings, and requesting an emergency virtual meeting at 8 a.m. As he typed, another notification flashed. Unknown number, Mumbai area code. A voice message. He played it. Sethi's smooth baritone filled the quiet room. Arjun, my friend. Heard there's turbulence at home. Shame. But business waits for no one. Let's talk before the sun comes up. I have an offer that could save your company. Or bury it. Your call. Arjun's jaw tightened. He did not reply. Instead he forwarded the message to his lawyer, added it to the growing dossier and continued writing. Outside, the city slept under a freshly washed sky. Inside the Kapoor mansion, a new chapter was being written. One where dignity would no longer be negotiable, where love would be louder than ambition, and where a mother who had once been silenced would help her son rewrite the rules of the game. But dawn was still hours away and the real battle was only beginning. Arjun glanced at the security app on his phone. Every camera was live, every angle covered. He would not be caught off guard again. Not by Priya. Not by Sethi. Not by anyone. He saved the draft, stood and walked to the window. The moon hung low, serene and indifferent. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle sounded, long, mournful, carrying people toward new destinations. Arjun felt the same pull. Tomorrow would bring reckoning, yes, but also possibility. For his mother. For himself. For the legacy they would rebuild together. Brick by honest brick. The first rays of dawn painted the Mumbai skyline in hues of gold and amber. Arjun Kapoor sat at his desk, his fingers flying across the keyboard like a maestro conducting a symphony of retribution. The email to the board was sent. A digital arrow loosed into the ether, carrying with it the weight of truth and the promise of justice. He leaned back, rubbing his temples, the exhaustion of the night warring with the adrenaline surging through his veins. Upstairs, his mother slept soundly for the first time in months, her dreams unburdened by the shadows of degradation. But for Arjun, sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford, not yet. Vikram Sethi's voice message lingered in his mind, a serpent's hiss tempting him toward compromise. He would not bite. By 8 a.m. the virtual board meeting convened, faces flickering on his screen like ghosts in a digital seance. Arjun laid it all bare. The recordings, the leaked documents, Priya's betrayal intertwined with Sethi's machinations. Gasps echoed through the speakers. One board member, a grizzled veteran of corporate wars, muttered, "This is sabotage, pure and vile." They voted unanimously. Full audit, legal action against Sethi and a temporary halt to all deals. Arjun's company, once teetering on the brink, now stood fortified, its foundations reinforced by transparency. Word spread like wildfire through the tech corridors of Mumbai and beyond. By noon the media had caught wind, headlines screaming Kapoor tech scandal. Insider betrayal rocks billion-dollar empire. Arjun fielded calls from reporters, allies and even distant relatives, but his focus remained laser-sharp. He met with Inspector Rao in person at a discreet cafe in Colaba, handing over an encrypted drive bulging with evidence. "This isn't just personal," Arjun said, his voice steady as steel. "It's about protecting the industry from predators like Sethi." Sethi, sensing the noose tightening, struck first. That afternoon, a smear campaign erupted online. Anonymous posts accusing Arjun of financial impropriety, backed by doctored emails that painted him as a reckless gambler. Shares dipped 5% in an hour, investors panicking like birds fleeing a storm. But Arjun had anticipated this. With his cybersecurity team, he traced the posts back to a shell company linked to Sethi. In a bold countermove, he went public on his company's social channels, live-streaming a press conference from the mansion's grand hall. Flanked by Anjali, who stood regal in a silk sari embroidered with threads of gold, he dismantled the lies one by one. "Ladies and gentlemen," Arjun began, his voice resonating with the charisma that had built his fortune, "today I stand not as a victim but as a guardian. My own wife conspired with Vikram Sethi to undermine what we've built. But here's the truth." He played excerpts from the recordings, blurred for privacy but damning in clarity. The world watched as Priya's words echoed. Confessions of leaks, boasts of manipulation. Anjali spoke next, her presence commanding the screen. "I was silenced once," she said, her eyes gleaming with unshed tears of triumph. "But no more. This is a story of resilience, of a mother's love prevailing over deceit." The tide turned instantaneously. Shares rebounded, surging 10% by close of market. Allies rallied. Old university friends offered pro bono legal aid. Former employees volunteered testimonies of Arjun's integrity. Sethi, cornered, called that evening, his suave tone frayed at the edges. "Arjun, let's negotiate. We can merge empires, share the spoils." Arjun met him the next day at a neutral ground, a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Arabian Sea, where waves crashed like applause for the drama unfolding. Sethi arrived flanked by lawyers, his smile a veneer over desperation. "You have no proof that holds in court," he bluffed, sliding a folder across the table, "offers of hush money, partnership deals." Arjun laughed, a sound rich with irony. "Proof? I have more than enough. But this isn't about courts alone. It's about legacy." He revealed his ace: hacked communications from Sethi's own servers, courtesy of an ethical hacker friend who owed him a favor from college days. Emails detailing bribes, rigged bids, even threats to competitors. "Resign quietly," Arjun demanded, "or watch your empire crumble in the headlines." Sethi's face crumpled, the predator revealed as prey. By week's end he stepped down, his company absorbed in a fire sale to ethical buyers. Priya, facing charges of fraud and espionage, fled to her parents' home, her social circle evaporating like mist in the sun. Divorce papers arrived swiftly. She signed without contest, her ambitions reduced to ashes. In the aftermath, the Kapoor mansion transformed. Anjali reclaimed her role not as servant but as sage advisor. She hosted gatherings once more, intimate dinners where stories flowed like fine wine, inspiring young entrepreneurs with tales of perseverance. Arjun, lighter without the weight of betrayal, innovated anew. An app for elder care detecting mistreatment through AI-monitored homes, dedicated to his mother. It launched to acclaim, downloads soaring into millions, turning personal pain into global good. Months passed, monsoon giving way to the crisp air of Diwali. Lights twinkled across the city, fireworks painting the night in bursts of color. Arjun stood on the terrace, Anjali by his side watching the spectacle. "Beta," she said softly, "you've given me back my life. But what of yours?" He smiled, glancing at his phone. A message from a new acquaintance, a brilliant coder named Mira, met at a conference. She shared his vision, saw him not as a tycoon but as a man with heart. "I'm building it anew, Ma. With truth as the foundation." As firecrackers boomed, symbolizing victory over darkness, Anjali hugged him tight. "Then let this be our Diwali gift. A future where love outshines ambition, where family is the true empire." Their story rippled outward, inspiring podcasts, books, even a Bollywood script in the works. Viewers on YouTube channels devoured retellings, commenting in droves, "Epic comeback. Mother-son goals. Justice served hot." But for Arjun and Anjali, the real triumph was quieter. Their bond, unbreakable, a beacon in a world of fleeting fortunes. Years later, as Arjun's children played in the same halls where shadows once loomed, he would tell them the tale. "Remember," he'd say, eyes twinkling, "the greatest power isn't in boardrooms or bank accounts. It's in standing up for those who stood for you. Anjali, now a philanthropist funding women's shelters, would nod, her legacy etched not in stone, but in lives transformed. And so, in the heart of Mumbai's glittering chaos, the Kapoor saga ended not with a whisper, but with a roar, a magnificent testament to redemption, resilience, and the enduring magic of familial love. It captivated hearts, drew tears and cheers, proving that even in betrayal's grip, heroes rise, empires rebuild, and stories like theirs echo eternally, drawing listeners and viewers into a world where justice dances like fireworks across the sky, illuminating paths for all who dare to dream.